Alright, what's up, guys? I just want to take a second because of all the things that I see to voice my opposition and present some alternatives, maybe solutions if you want to look at it like that. So we're going to list off a few things here, and it's nice in the sense that we can see these things happening because it's mostly court cases and stuff like that, and we can see the abuses of the public, the abuses of power, the abuses of the legal system, and because we can see it, we can get insight into how these things work and how they can work against us. In that process, we're going to also strongly voice our opposition. If you're wondering why I got these big ass headphones on, it's because of the sound issues that I had yesterday. I was out here for like 30 minutes reading and you can't hear it. So I'll get a new laptop again, I promise. Anyway, so these things we're going to address, these aren't new issues, but they do just so happen to be the biggest issue that we as the public currently have. We're going to go through examples from smallest to largest. Ultimately, this always comes down to human nature. Okay, so we're going to start in the city of Boston with the Karen Reed trial. If you've been paying attention to this, then you know that it's bullshit. Literally, the Boston police are trying to frame a woman for murder. It's obvious what happened, and it's obvious who did it. The wife is doing normal wife things when their husband doesn't come home and can't locate him. Meanwhile, the enemy of the victim is luring him out to other places. Obvious what happened. Obvious. So in the city of Boston, obviously corrupt police department is framing a woman for murder. Absolutely insane. Could be you, could be me. It just depends. Wrong place, wrong time is all it takes. What's particularly egregious about this specific example is that the Boston police collected the blood of a dead man in 6 red solo cups. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Now, that's the worst part about that from an actions taken standpoint. But the worst part really is the fact that they will go to court and just say the dumbest shit imaginable. The dumbest things you have ever heard. These cops have got on the stand and said under oath. Of course, nobody did anything about it. That's why we're here. They said that a man got hit on his arm by the back of a car driven by a drunk woman in a snowstorm, drunk. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that already. Driven by a drunk woman in a snowstorm with the pedal to the floor, going as fast as she could go. It hit his arm and launched his entire body. They really said that. They really said that. Anyway, the worst part is that they aren't hesitant to say that. Because that demonstrates that they're comfortable with that. They've done this before. This is not their first rodeo. they there's a good chance that they put someone else in jail because I'm sorry, not because we can't really speak to becauses, but there's a good chance that they've done this before, and we can base that on their actions this time. They do not care. They do not give a shit to look stupid. So, while it may not extend to like murders, like what they're framing, I said it. I said it. They're framing Karen Reed for, or other really harsh crimes. It's just the truth that nearly every police station across the country, if not the entire Western world, behaves in the same way. They do. That's really not a secret. No one, anywhere, ever is going to question them. No one is going to punish them. So why wouldn't they do it. They get out of trouble for the actual crime that was committed, uh, and nobody does anything about it. Why wouldn't they? There's no consequences. Here's one more thing that's absolutely true. There cannot be good cops and bad cops. I hear people say this all the time. It's a few rotten apples. No, that's not true. Because of the nature of the job, if there were good cops, there cannot be bad cops. Because it's the job of the good cop to get rid of the bad cop. And we can look and we can see that there's all kinds of bad cops. That means there's no good cops getting rid of them because there are no good cops. They are all bad cops. A poison tree does not produce good fruit, not even one. Anyway, that being said, this is the smallest issue, the local community issue. The Boston police just happen to be in the spotlight right now, and they are the perfect example for what these people do. And so, the question I want to ask is, would the police would the Boston police be doing that if they knew that the public was willing to engage in violence when necessary? Would you think they'd be doing that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because that is the consequence. The a letter, a paid suspension, relocation to a different department. That's not a consequence at all. There's no consequences for the Boston police for possibly one of them murdering the man and then framing a woman for doing it. No consequences. None. The only real thing that's going to happen is she might not actually get convicted. Might not. What's crazy is the jury said they were having problems, and so it was a mistrial. She wasn't even acquitted of something she obviously did not do. Okay, so let's go up a little bit. We started with the police, now we're going to go up to the entire city. And there just happens to be a city that's in the spotlight right now for the absurd things that are going on in the city. That's Dalton, Illinois. And again, this isn't because the mayor, who we're going to talk about uh, briefly, because why bother? Um, they're not. She's not doing something unique. She's doing what the rest of them do, but she's not hiding it. That's what we're touching on here. We have several examples of people not hiding it. So the mayor is so blatant about what a lot of mayors are doing that she's got the attention on her, and so we can use that to see what they're doing. Okay. Nearly every city across this nation, if not the entire Western world, behaves in the same way. There's a mayor who is only worried about their self. They funnel money, extort, manipulate, only care about their own bank account. They have no regard for the public. You can look around and see, obviously, the mayors, the governors, none of them give a shit. They're only worried about their self, their own image, their own wealth. It's almost all of them. They are the local gatekeeper of the status quo. Things work a certain way, and if you try to change it at the local level, there's always a gatekeeper to cut you off, to put obstacles in your way. So in this specific example right here, it isn't just the mayor, and it's unique in the sense that we see more parts than just one isolated group of people, like just the police department trying to frame a woman for murder. We get to see the police, the mayor, the firefighters, the city council, the treasurer. We get to see how all these pieces are moving and working together, but also not helping the other parties out and only worrying about their own bank accounts and their own images. So, Dalton, Illinois just happens to be an issue of a city that's in the spotlight that we can look at to see what the others are doing. Because, as I said, this is not unique whatsoever. It's literally almost all of them. I'll get into that a little more further down here. And so, again, my question is, this is politics. The police is not, it's not necessarily political in nature, but the mayor, the city council, and that is. That's politics, bro. And so the question is, and this is actually a perfect example of being destructive to the ends of life, liberty, and happiness. But do you think that the mayor of Illinois would be doing that if she knew that the public was willing to engage in political violence? Would she be spending 100K on her hair every 6 months? I guess we'll never know. Okay, so if you can't tell, I'm trying to hurry this up. Um, Not because I don't want to be here, because I do. It's the sun's going down, and before I finish, it's going to be dark out here. Watch. So we're going to go up another level. We started at the police, went to the mayor. Now we're going to go up again, and we are going to go up to the state level, and not the governor. We should have done the governor too, but there's not really a governor in the spotlight right this minute that we can get a clear view of how the corruption works there. But under the governor, we do have DAs, district attorneys that are in the spotlight that are corrupt as can be, that we can look at to see how the other corrupt DAs behave. It's helpful. I probably don't need to do a complete rundown on this because if you turned your TV on, I'm sure you've heard about a DA, and there's quite a few of them in the spotlight right now. Okay. So one thing we have to acknowledge once we get to the level of these things being political, mayors, governors, and parties and shit, uh, the the main motivator is political aspirations. The reason that they engage in this corrupt behavior and keep it secret is because they want to move up the party ladder and they want to move up the government ladder. And we can list a few DAs here, and they're all doing the same thing. The only thing that a DA cares about is a prosecutorial, perfect prosecution record. The only thing they care about is not losing trials. And so what we see is all these district attorneys that are in the media right now, they are all bending the law and doing the same thing to try to get the prosecution to get the good record. In Georgia, we got Fannie Willis, who is so incompetent and unqualified. I could speak for days just about how terrible she is at her job. Terrible. She I'm not even going to get angry. But it does make me angry that people are left in prison with no court date, no charges, none of that. 5 years. She's had 25 people in jail for 5 years waiting for trial. I'm speaking specifically about the Jeffrey Williams trial. That one single trial is a demonstration on how corrupt district attorneys act and operate. You can see it. They're not hiding it. And I'll tell you why in just a second, why they are not even hiding it. They don't have to. So, in New York, we have Alvin Bragg, Letitia James using the same weak, generic, corrupt prosecutorial tactics. It's when you yell something out or you say something out loud that you weren't supposed to say, the jury wasn't supposed to hear that, or you present something and the jury wasn't supposed to see that, or you meet with the judge and a sworn in witness behind closed doors, after court, before court, and then you don't tell anybody about it. That's 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 as bad as it gets. And the question is, would they do that if they knew that the public was willing to get aggressive or get violent and actually do something about it. Because these people do this because they know that there's nobody's going to do nothing. What are you going to do? Write them a letter? Not vote for them? Okay, let's continue. Do 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 do. Sorry, I jumped ahead. I'm just trying to catch. Okay, so again, these DAs that are in the media. They are not special. They are just in the spotlight, and we're able to see how they operate. And seeing that, we can learn how they all operate. Because again, they aren't the only ones. It's most of them. And again, they do it because they know nobody's going to do a thing about it. Nobody. Because it's the job of the public to hold the government accountable. And if you expect the government to hold the government accountable, you're a fool. Not going to happen. They're going to find they're going to investigate themselves and find they did nothing wrong and then get a bigger budget. So, let's move on. We're going to go bigger here. Let's assume that you were arrested by corrupt cops who are trying to frame you for something, and the DA wants that prosecution on their record. They win. You might think to yourself, the judge is going to see this, and he's gonna see the truth, and he's going to drop the charges. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. The judge, multiple judges that we have in the media right now, and when I say media, I don't mean like CNN, because you have to basically be brain dead to watch that shit. Um, I mean live streams. Basically, you can watch what's happening in court right that second. You can watch it live. You don't need anybody telling you what's going on. You don't need anybody trying to make points and tell you what happened. You can watch it with your own two eyes. And as I said, there's multiple judges right now, actually all the time. There's all kinds of courtrooms that have actual YouTube setups, and they live stream every single day. It's wonderful. Um, so you might think to yourself, the judge is going to see the truth and set you free because they're trying to frame you. But the truth is, that judge has worked with those police and those DAs for years, if not decades. The police, the prosecutors, the DAs, the judges, the public defenders, the security guards at the courthouse, the janitor at the courthouse, they all get their check cut from the same person, which ultimately is you, because it's your tax money. But they all get paid by the same them. The government pays them. Um, they're all friends. They've all known each other for years. They all hang out. Not one time has any of them held the others accountable for their corruption. It doesn't happen. It does not happen. I'm sorry. Just trying to keep up. So, these people are all friends. They all know each other. They've known each other forever. The entire time that they've had that job, they've known the others. They've never held each other to account. They only empower one another to engage in further corruption. The issue is, if these people came and went, everything would be fine. But they don't do that. They always hold on to power as long as possible. And if you come along and you want to try to get their job, you want to run to be elected judge, you will have as many roadblocks as possible put in your way by these people because they want to hold power themselves. And it's not necessarily just this. It's anytime you give a person power, they don't want to give it up. They don't. And so the question is, again, these judges, DAs, police, governors, all of them, if they knew that the public was willing to engage in anything physically, would they do it? Would they do it? Would judges collude with prosecutors behind the defense's back in a closed door meeting off the record and threaten to jail someone for years if they did not say what they wanted them to say? Would they do that if they knew the public would do something about it? If you can't tell, my entire point is, of course they wouldn't. Of course they know that if there was consequences of any sort, they wouldn't do anything to bring those consequences about. Okay, so we're going to finish up here. We're going to go bigger one more time. We started out at the local level with the police and city councils, mayors. We stepped it up and talked about DAs, judges. It applies to governors as well. Pretty much anybody within government has no consequences for their actions. At the local level, the city, the state, the federal, international, none of them have consequences for their actions. And the sad part is, it is not just the local that is the issue. In fact, the local is less of a problem than the federal. At the federal level, for example, the Senate and the House of Representatives, that is where 75% of the corruption within the government happens. Just the House and Senate alone, not counting the entire city, that fucking scum bucket of Washington, D.C. Just weirdos. Just the House and Senate alone have a criminal record longer than most entire cities. Entire cities. Just the House and Senate have longer rap sheets. It is insane. And of course, what did they get? What did they get? Any one of them, what did they get for having these crazy, crazy criminal records? They got a six-figure job making over $250,000 a year in the federal government, working 3 months out of the year. Crazy, huh? So, this issue came about. At some point, it was universally known that politicians are scum. They are the worst people on earth. Politicians and journalists. They will destroy lives to make money, to benefit themselves. They have no regard for anyone other than themselves. See, I told you it'd be nighttime out here. And at that point, when it was known that politicians are bad people, good people decided they didn't want to be politicians because they didn't want to be labeled bad people. But bad people have no problem with that title. It doesn't bother them. They don't mind. And so we got to the point where only bad people, immoral, degenerate people, held these offices. And that's where we are now, and that's why I'm here. Okay, so, in conclusion, our entire government, top to bottom, is corrupt and self-serving. It is destructive to the ends of life, liberty, and happiness. It is. And it is because there are no consequences for their actions. There is no consequence for them extorting the public. There is no consequence for them starting endless wars. There is no consequence for anything they do. None. Now, it was always intended that consequences for the actions of the government were supposed to be delivered by the public. The public has to hold the government accountable. That's how it has to be. It cannot be any other way. If it is, we get what we got now. We have a president who raised a crackhead. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. The President of the United States has a son who smokes crack. And that's not just it. That's not just it. It gets crazier. They found cocaine in the White House. Um, and they don't know who it belongs to. It's seriously, you can't make this shit up. Now, as crazy as that sounds, I'm going to tell you something crazier. You can look this up if you want. It's the most foul shit I've ever heard in my life. There's a journalist at the White House asking questions, pre-written, screened, approved, because that's the only questions you're allowed to ask. Anyway, and he is asking the question. In mid-question, he stops and points out that there is a cockroach on the wall of the White House. And immediately, I realized the White House has been turned into a trap house. You got crackheads running in and out, roaches all over the place. It's a fucking trap house, bro. They really turned the White House into a trap house. And guess what? Guess what? Nobody did a thing about it. Nothing. It's supposed to be a sacred building meant for the most avid and strongest protectors of this nation. And they turned it into a trap house. Isn't it crazy? It's so crazy what these people get away with. And frankly, they are far better off than the entire public, and they still choose to act like this. There are people like, I was going to mention Joe Biden with the whole 94 crime bill, throwing black people in prison for life, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to mention Nancy Pelosi, who has been taking information that she gets from her job in the government, giving that information to her husband, and then her husband has been investing based on that information. Did you know that Nancy Pelosi's husband has the best trading record ever? His trading record beats AI. It beats, what's that word? I don't remember the word. But it beats prolific investors. Investors that were just blessed with luck when it comes to investments. Nancy Pelosi's husband beat them 10 to 1. When the economy does great, Nancy Pelosi's husband makes money. When the economy tanks, Nancy Pelosi's husband makes money. And guess what? Nobody even asked a question. Nobody did a thing about it. Obvious crime being committed. Nobody did a thing about it. I mentioned in one of my old videos, Mitch McConnell is the senator from Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky. His wife has a shipping company based in China, and they pulled his boat off to the side and searched it, and found cocaine, which who would have guessed? But they caught Mitch McConnell's family shipping cocaine up the Ohio River. Guess what happened? Go ahead. That's right. Nothing. Nothing happened. Nothing. Nobody mentioned it. The one news article about it said, "Oh, it wasn't that much." But you know what? That's the same thing Joe Biden was throwing black people in prison for decades. The same thing that his son is on camera doing is what he was giving black folk in California 10 to 20 years in prison for doing what his son is doing probably right now. And no consequences for them. None. But just imagine what they would not be doing if they knew that the public was willing to actually hand them consequences. The reason I'm saying this is I would never want violence to be brought to anyone. I don't like violence. I'm not a violent person. I don't want people to get hurt at all. I want everyone to do well. I want everyone to do so well that I'm doing the worst. Then I just know that I can do my best and everybody's good, including me. But the people of the country are supposed to hold the leaders of the country accountable and deliver punishment for the very things that they're doing. And I am just tired of seeing it. I'm tired of seeing obvious criminals committing obvious crimes and flaunting it in front of the public on camera for everyone to see and no one doing anything about it. I'm tired of seeing it. So somebody's got to do something about it. Obviously, elections don't fucking matter anymore. You're not going to get help from the media. Whatever. I'm sure you're tired of seeing it too. But I guess that's it for us tonight. We're going to come back tomorrow because yesterday I'm trying to get into the spirit of making some Bible videos and breaking down some parables and metaphors. And I was watching one of my own videos on double speed because why not? I talk slow. I say um, a lot, and it pisses me off. So I try to not do that. But I was watching a video, and it was talking about Joseph and the coat of many colors, and his relatives threw him down the well. And that made me think of Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. And so I started doing some reading, and of course, it's the same well. It's Jacob's well. And Jacob also had a ladder. And so Jacob has a thing that goes up and a thing that goes down, and the metaphor there. And that's what we're going to talk about real soon. But I love you guys. I'll see you soon.